According to the article, the intended effects of pesticides are to target their desired action, displaying optimal efficiency while protecting non-target organisms. So for example, say you're trying to kill some weeds on your front lawn. You're going to use weed killer or herbicide, and what you're trying to do is target the weeds while protecting and maintaining that green grass that surround the weeds. So basically your target would be the weeds, and you want to protect the non-target organisms, which would be the grass surrounding the weeds. Now, a few types of pesticides include insecticide, herbicide, fungicide, and bactericides. And as their names show, insecticides, they kill insects. Herbicides kill plants, vegetation. Fungicide kills fungus, and bactericide kills bacteria. Now, moving on to the following slide. The graphs on the right are graph A displays the amount of publications that mention the effects of pesticides, and graph B displays the types of pesticides mentioned in publications, and they also have a connection with the effects of pesticides. Now, we can interpret from graph A that as the years go on, so as we're increasing up into the year 2013, the use of pesticides and their effects are being more heavily mentioned. And then in graph B, we can see the two types of pesticides, the organophosphates and organochlorines, which seem to be the most heavily used and the most useful, as their line on the graph show that their effects are heavily mentioned as the years continue.
Pesticides have a huge effect on unintended individuals. They affect all animal species, some more severely than others, such as the fish and amphibians. Pesticides can disrupt the endocrine process or increase an animal's neurotoxicity, which can both lead to a dramatic decrease in reproduction success rates. An example of how pesticides affect animals can be observed through the effects of DDT on the bird population. DDT causes the endocrine system in birds to be disrupted, which causes some birds to have a reduction in shell thickness up to as much as 90%, which in turn increases the rate of shell cracking, which decreases the success rate of bird reproduction. In a different research, it was also observed that there was a link between pesticides and human reproduction as well.
Not only do pesticides impact individuals, they impact populations as a whole. In the article we read, it was found in birds that pesticides have been linked to endocrine disruption and neurotoxicity. It was also found that DDT and DDE, which are main components of pesticides, had devastating effects on many Great Lakes bird species by reducing their eggshell thickness up to 90%. So this caused their eggs to be very brittle and didn't allow the eggs that were laid to be hatched into new baby birds. They would just die. It was also found that pesticides cause many endocrine effects in multiple bird species, which in turn causes population declines. Not only have pesticides been found to have negative effects on bird populations, pesticides have also caused declines in amphibian populations by causing impaired immune function and increased infection rates. Pesticide-induced neurological, endocrine, and olfactory dysfunction has also caused declines in fish populations as well. According to an article from the American Journal of Agricultural Economics, field experiments have shown that fish species that are commonly found in Southeast Asian rice fields have high mortality rates due to pesticide exposure.
The picture to the right is one from Figure 2 of my group's article. It shows how pesticides affected wildlife on individual, population, and community levels. The known effects are shown by solid arrows, and the anticipated effects are dashed arrows. Almost all individuals show consequences like altered behavior and reproductive failure. The result of this is a decline in population. For communities, this can mean a change in food source and even a decrease in natural predators. In vertebrates, pesticides affect the immune system and diminish metabolic functions. Some examples of these functions are thermoregulation and behavior. In fish and amphibians, pesticides have shown consequences like organ deformity, delayed hatching, and growth suppression. Laurentian Great Lake birds were studied, and after consuming fish affected by pesticides, they had a reduction of eggshell thickness up to 90%. This is problematic because birds will begin to hatch prematurely.
This picture, which is figure 3 in our article, is showing the correlation between the interactions of global change and pesticide effects in the environment and wildlife. Each arrow is connecting a different aspect on how global change is in direct relations to pesticides and how the changes are increasing the pesticide risk, as well as other factors in the environment. The factors that are presumed to be in effect from global change is in the green, while the factors that are presumed to be in effect from pesticides are in yellow. Each arrow points to the resulting change inflicted, while giving a reference as to how it's impacted. The global effects of pesticides can range from anything such as weather conditions and temperature increase. A number of different pesticides have been proven to affect immune parameters, which in result is linked to an increase of infection and disease caused by parasites, which have infected many different species in wildlife. One example of a global change is in bumblebees. Worker bees who are exposed to high levels of pesticides can be expected to have altered behavior, which results to a decline in pollen collecting efficiency. This, in result, affects the pollination and germination of the flowers and creates a honey deficiency, which impacts other populations.
One of the solutions to the impact pesticides have on the environment is a natural solution, and microevolution. Microevolution is the evolutionary change within a species or a small group of organisms, especially over a short period of time. The difference between microevolution and regular evolution is that microevolution occurs at a much faster pace. This is because of direct stressors put in the environment. For example, the picture on the right depicts a direct stressor that is put in the pesticides or in the pest's environment. The pesticide is applied, and those without the adaptation to survive it perish immediately. That way, the next time it is applied, more remain because they have developed the adaptation to survive the pesticide. This is a bad thing when pesticides develop resistance. However, it is imperative that unintended victims of pesticides do this. It has been seen that fish, crustaceans, and other aquatic insects recovered within months of the stoppage of pesticide use and have also developed a resistance to it that helps them live a normal life with pesticides in their environment. Another solution is the rotation of crops. Different crops require different pesticides. This means that by rotating the crops, it helps spread the time between the same pesticide use. The previously mentioned crustaceans, fish, and aquatic insects will be able to rebuild their ecosystems and acquire a resistance for the next wave of pesticides that impacts them. Another solution is organic crops. A study found that pesticide-treated corn produced the same yield as organic corn. While this is not always the case, it is one of these best solutions because it gets rid of the use of pesticides altogether, which protects the environment rather than trying to come up with other solutions to this pesticide problem. However, this is not realistic as pesticides need to be used to protect most plants. In order to come up with a long-term solution, scientists need to map out intended and unintended individuals and how they are impacted by pesticides. By doing this, it helps determine confounding factors that aid pesticides and their impact on the environment. Only then will scientists be able to single out and come up with solutions to those confounding variables along with the impact that pesticides have on different organisms. By using more organic options, you are saving the world from the pesticide problem.